Oh, need to show my screen just a second. All right, there we go. Hey y'all, my name's Jay Wilson. I'm the lead consultant and trainer at Onyx Reporting. I'm here today to give you a JET reports coaching session, mentoring session, if you will, based off of an email a client sent to me. In the general gist of the email, slightly paraphrased, is as such. I'm pulling a report for the sale of product, and with 2 orders, the quantity being pulled is incorrect. It's stating that the quantity is 75 and it should be 300. I checked the data in nav and it's listed correctly at 300. Here's the line of code I'm using. I'm stuck on this as all other line items are correct except for these 2 cases. Do you think it's a nav issue or a JET issue? Guys, let me start by saying, JET Reports as a company has been around for 15 years. So if your report ran and shows numbers, it is probably the case that JET Reports is doing exactly what you told it to do. And the error is in the design of your report. Hate to break it to you, that statement is probably true 98% of the time. Now that said, if you run your report and you get a bunch of pound value errors, or if you run your report and the error message that you get is non-intelligible, like it's not, obvious what the error message is, then there might be a bug in the software. But again, 98% of the times if the report runs, shows numbers, and the numbers are wrong, the problem is with the design of the report, not with the JET product. That statement is probably true 98% of the time. So let's take a look at this report. Let's try to figure out why this guy's NL first function is giving the wrong result. Okay. When I'm faced with a new report from a client that I've never seen before, and the guy sent me the email, I opened it up, I looked at it for 30 seconds, and I knew right away what the problem was. But the first thing I do to troubleshoot a report is I find the NL rows function, and here it is. I'm going to open this guy up in the function wizard, and let's talk about what we're looking at. Let's identify what kind of function this is. You've got 2 choices. Is this a data dump, or is this a summary list? Data dump or summary list? The answer is, drumroll please, for $1 million, this is a data dump. For those of you who've been following me in my blog posts, I will also refer to this as a record key in JET nomenclature. That is the most correct answer. This is a record key. Now, what is a record key? The record key is a unique identifier for a record in your database. It tells you how to find a record in this case, in nav. So what is my data source? That's how you connect to the database. It's how you get to the right database. Then Cronus International Limited, that's what company it is. What is 113? That is the table number for the sales invoice line. And then I've got 3, some numbers, and 4 with some numbers. What are those? Those are the unique identifier for a record in that table. And you're thinking to yourselves, all right, Jay, say that in English. How do you uniquely identify one sales invoice line? The unique, oh gosh, if I could type, unique ID for the sales invoice line is the document number and the line number. That's the unique identifier for a record in the sales invoice line table. Okay, we're going to just logic through why that statement is true, and then I'll prove it in JET first. Think about one of those buy 2 get 1 free deals that we love. Yeah? So I've got this widget. We'll call it item number widget A. And I'm buying them a quantity of 2, and the price is, $25 per widget. And then on this, in the same invoice, so this is invoice ABC1, in the same invoice, I can buy, this is where I have to get my free one, my freebie, right? So I'll have the same item number multiple times for the same invoice. So the unique identifier for an invoice line cannot be the item number. It must be the line number. Make sense? That's just how invoices work, right? You can buy the same item for different prices multiple times. Fact. Now, if you still don't believe me, you're like, but it's nav, not, this made-up system that Jay's using. What you can always do, if you're using a table that you're not familiar with and you want to try to figure out, okay, what is the unique identifier for the table? You can go into the browser and then you can find the table in question. So here's the sales invoice line. And then right here under details, it'll give you details about the table. Look, the table number is 113. I said that. And then here under keys, which is expandable, you will see that the first key is document number and line number. And guess what? That's what I also said was the unique identifier for the table. If you still don't believe me, I'm all about the skeptics. Here on the right, find the field called document number, and that's a 3. Let's find line number. That's a 4. Bam. And just for the ultimate non-believer, number is 6, and that's not part of your primary key. Okay. You can do the same thing for any table in nav. Let's find the sales line table, not the invoice line, but the sales line. So for the sales line table, the table number is 37, and the unique identifier for the table is document type, document number, and line number. And you're thinking, document type. Why do I need document type? Well, in unposted sales lines, you can have orders, quotes, blanket orders. Is that a thing? Okay, so document type becomes important, and that's why it's part of the unique identifier for the sales line table. You might think, oh, let's look up GL entry. I've always wondered. Entry number. Let's look up customer. That one should be obvious. The unique identifier for a customer is the customer number. Okay? So again, by leaving the field argument blank, this double comma here, I recognize right away this is a record key. What is a record key? It is a unique identifier for a record in your database. What does this nonsense mean? It tells you that the unique identifier for a record in the table is 3 and 4, or document number, line number. Okay, how does that affect how I actually build my report? Well, those of you who've used drag and drop out of the browser know that when you see this record key, you pull the field that you want to see using an NF function. NF, field, NF, don't forget. Let's take a look at the NF function. The 2 arguments for an NF function are the key, the record key, and then once you've chosen the record that you want to see, then you say what field you want to pull. So in this case, we're saying I want to pull the number field. I could just as easily pull any other field from the table. All right, to see this in action, I'm going to delete hide from column B. Let's run our report. And if you've ever looked closely at a data dump or at a bunch of record keys, hopefully come on now. On each row, the field argument, on each row, the value is going to be different, or the combination of values will be different. So here's document number 103010, 103011, 10, right? the combination of values are different because the record key is a unique identifier for a record in the table. So by definition, each of these is going to be different. All right. Again, once you have your record key, you extract the field that you want to see using an NF function. So why did our friend go wrong? Well, they used an NL first function to retrieve data from the sales invoice line. And I just gave you the answer. What they should have done is they should have retrieved the data using an NF function. First argument of the NF function was the record key. So I go back to column B because that says what record I want. Now what field do I want to see? I want to see quantity. Cool. Now, you might say, but Jay, theoretically, shouldn't you be able to get the right answer with an NL first? And the answer is yes, you can build this report using an NL first, but let's talk about our filters. What did this user filter by? They filtered by document number and then item number. I know it just says number, but in this case, you can read it as item number. It's almost the same thing. Okay, what should they have filtered by? Not number, but line number. They filtered by the wrong field. Over here, we just said the unique identifier for the table is document number and line number, not item number. Why isn't it item number? Because in the case of a BOGO, buy one, get one free, you can have the same item number multiple times. And that's exactly what's going on. The user is always pulling the first quantity and never the second quantity. Too long, don't read. Short version of the story is, first, we need to include the line number. How do I pull the line number? With an NF function. Then change my NL first to filter by document number and line number. I have to filter by the primary key or the unique identifier for the table, which again was defined by the record key. Done. If you don't believe me, try it. Guarantee you it'll work. Okay, so that's the answer. The report should have been built with an NF function. Now, what I'd like to do next is kind of talk a little bit about things I personally would have done differently had I been building this report. The first comment I'm going to make is just personal preference. This is not, a rule in the sand. My personal preference is if there's only one page to your report, right? There's only one page in this workbook. It's called pull. Then I don't build an options page. Call me lazy, but me personally, if there's one page in my report, I'm not going to create a separate options page. Now that said, if this were a financial package and there's an income statement and a balance sheet and a cash flow statement, right? In those instances, each of those three reports would have slightly different but mostly the same filter criteria. And for that reason, I would create an options page that has all of the filter criteria and then just pull the relevant filter criteria into the report, into the current spreadsheet that I'm working on that's applicable, okay? But given that there's only one report here, there's no reason to have a separate options page. One more caveat I should just tell you guys real quick, title of value lookup option, right? The thing that gives you the report options dialog box, you can only have that combination of keywords on one page in your workbook. So if I said, I've got 3 or 4 reports and I want an options page here, and I'll do title, value, and let me create an option called fail or test. Let's say posting data, salesperson code. I want users to be able to run the report for a specific salesperson code. It's not going to show up in my list because these options are coming from the page called options. Jet finds the first one and ignores the rest of them. Long story short, you can only have one options page per workbook. And like I said, for me personally, given that this report only has one page, I wouldn't have created a separate options page. For those of you who want to implement title, value, and have keywords, so like they wanted to hide their filter criteria, you can do hide plus option. And you can write title plus fit, okay? So hide and fit in row 1 in column A, you can do this hide plus or title plus fit. That will work. Cool. So that was kind of my optional take on the options page. I cracked myself up. Let's talk about the next thing. This user hard-coded company equals Cronus International Limited into every single NL first function. Every single NL function. Now, I assume they did that because in nav they have multiple companies and they want to be able to set this report to run for Cronus International. But what happens when the users come along and say, hey, we want to run this report for Cronus USA or Cronus Mexico? Now what? Well, now the designer has to go in and change Cronus International 15 times. And I am just way too lazy for that. So what I would do instead is I would recommend do what they did with everything else. And pass this filter in using a cell reference. Like they did it for cell 2, they did it for the posting date, they did it for the item number. You can do the exact same thing for the company argument. Okay, so that was a glaring error that I hope gets remedied, right? There's no reason to hard code filters into your reports. Just don't do it. Okay. Next thing, this is kind of style choice, but I think also kind of important when it comes to efficient report writing. Here's an NL first to the customer table, pulling the name of the customer in column C. Then we have another NL first to the customer table to grab the territory code. And we have another NL first to grab the email. We see a similar problem going to the sales invoice header. Here we have the NL first to the sales invoice header. I'm going to highlight this guy in orange. NL first to the sales to get the cell to. Then I have another NL first to grab the invoice date, right? 2 NL firsts. For me personally, when I have 1, 2, 3 NL firsts to the same table, that's when I say, guys, this is just too much typing. Instead of doing it that way, what I would recommend is write a data dump to the customer table. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this function over here. For $1 million, guys, how do you make a data dump? Hopefully you all said by leaving the field argument blank. So by taking out the field argument, I turn this into a data dump, or I turn this into a record key. Oh, hey, look, what is the table number for customer? 18. What is the unique identifier for the table? Field number 1, which we can bet is the customer number. Okay, so because I have a record key over here going to the customer table, I can retrieve the customer name using an NF function. And then when I want to grab the territory, I can grab the territory using an NF function. Territory code. And the same thing for the email. Okay, One of the reasons I can build reports so quickly is I'm all about efficient report design and typing as little as possible. And an NF is way faster than typing a whole bunch of NL firsts. For your lookup to the sales invoice header, again, you could choose to do this as a bunch of NL firsts, or you could make another record key to the sales invoice header table. I would probably do the second option. The last thing I wanted to talk about is this, what looks like is supposed to be a sum function, but I guarantee you it doesn't work. And if you're ever trying to put a subtotal into your report or a report total, you have to include the anchor row. What is the anchor row? Oh, you forgot the trainings I've delivered. Shame, shame. The anchor row is the row beneath the replicated region. And vocabulary, oh, I'm such a stickler for vocabulary. The anchor row is the row beneath the replicated region. In this instance, the row beneath the replicated region is actually the row beneath the NL rows function. So if I want to have a subtotal, I must include the value, quantity, or 25, and the anchor row, so that when the report runs and JET automatically inserts rows between 9 and 10, the range automatically expands. One of the habits I've recently gotten into is to put the sum above the report. That way you don't have to scroll down to the bottom. That's just me. Okay, this report will run. It will be glorious. Oh, by the way, you should get into a habit of whenever you have these NL firsts, do the quote @ ampersand to allow for the possibility that the sell to customer number had been left blank. And that is most applicable in this instance for the description. Okay. Right then. So my name's Jay Wilson. I'm the lead JET Reports consultant at Onyx Reporting. Again, user submitted a report. They said, hey, I think JET Reports might be the problem. And the answer is no. JET Reports is not the problem. JET Report, when the report runs, it will return exactly what you told it to return. So just make sure your logic is sound. And part of making sure the logic is sound is by learning to look at record keys when you're using them to understand what the filter criteria are that you have to use if you're going to use an NL first function someplace else. And we talked about how you can use the browser to get that job done. All right, my name's Jay Wilson. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, need some more coaching, need some more training, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll get that set up for you. Catch you guys later. Cheers. Bye.